This is Ethan Skolnick for the Five on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and this is a short intro that I'm adding to an episode that Alphonse, Sidney, and I recorded about the Miami Heat prior to the tragic passing of Kobe Bryant and 8 others, including his daughter Gianna, at roughly 2:30 Eastern Time on Sunday. The episode you're going to hear has a certain lighthearted tone, which is consistent with the rest of our episodes. But we did not want to combine Kobe Bryant coverage with the Miami Heat coverage for that reason. We wanted to give this the respect that it deserves, and that's why on the feed you will also find a commentary that I did on Sunday night about Kobe Bryant with a bit of a Miami Heat perspective because it's through the eyes of Dwayne Wade and LeBron James and my observations of their interactions. But again, wanted to keep it separate from what amounts to pretty trivial stuff that Alf and I are going to talk about regarding the Miami Heat.
Welcome in the latest episode of the Five on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Make sure to check out 5reasonsports.com. Spell it out, F-I-V-E, reasonsports.com. Why should you go this week? Because obviously we'll have a ton of Heat content, as we always do. The only all-free Heat content in the market. But also it's Super Bowl week. We've got 3 credentials I'll be covering with Chris Kaufman and with Craig Davis, but we've got an army of people behind us. They're going to be writing Dolphins-related stories for the site. You do not care about the 49ers and the Chiefs. You may not even care about the Dolphins anymore. But we're going to try to force feed you some Dolphins coverage. So everything's going to be in a Dolphins context. I've covered 9 Super Bowls. I've been commissioned to write a bunch of stories about the 2 teams playing in the game, and nobody cared in South Florida. So we're going to write about the Miami Dolphins. So we'll be at the game. We'll be at the events all week. So check out 5reasonsports.com. A lot of you have found it through like one-off stories, but we post stuff there every day. Also, of course, check out our 3 Yards Per Carry podcast, which is by far the best NFL podcast in our market. All right, before we get to today's episode on the Miami Heat, I want to tell you about one of the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that's Cervanti Men's Custom Clothier. That's right, Cervanti Men's Custom Clothier is helping me look better than I usually look. How frustrating is it to shop for dress clothes? You can never seem to find the right fit, color, or style. Maybe you feel like you never know what to wear or how to wear it. Maybe you've got a wedding, a special event coming up like a Super Bowl, or you just wear professional attire daily. That's why you've got to go see Blanca over at Cervanti Men's Custom Clothier in South Miami, her private showroom located right across from Sunset Place on Red Road. I've been stunned how many people know Blanca already since I started working with her. She and Cervanti have been designing custom-made clothing in South Miami for over 30 years. Your custom-made suits, pants, shirts, and shoes will fit you just the way you like. I picked up 3 coats, 6 shirts, couple pair of jeans. It's great stuff. Schedule a private consultation with Blanca to start looking your best and get the benefit of a female's perspective on men's fashion. Give her a call at 305-310-2085. 305-310-2085. There's a few attorneys I know, some of whom were sitting in better seats than me the other night because they're spending my money, who should go to Cervanti. Okay, so if you're listening right now, give Blanca a call. Nothing fits like custom-tailored clothes. Stop buying off the rack. All right. Now today's episode.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse, Sidney, a.k.a. Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back here with Alphonse, Sidney. We did not pod on Friday night. Alf and Alex were there as media. Alex was, I guess, uncontrollable when Dion got in the game. I was kind of sitting in the crowd having a half work, half non-work night. But Alf, the big story on Friday, other than the Heat losing at home for the second time, and now they've lost only 2 games at home to the 2 LA teams by a total of 8 points. I don't think there's any shame in that. But the big story was without Goran Dragic, without Kendrick Nunn, and we will address that during the podcast. We saw the first of Dion Waiters this season, more than halfway into the year, and he got an ovation when he came in the game, and then he provided the entire Philly cheese experience. A block, a big 3, and also 2 of the worst air balls I've ever seen. But you had some thoughts on Twitter, and I wanted to get to those first before we get into sort of how he played. I want to get into the reaction to Dion Waiters, because I thought your thoughts were some of the more interesting I saw out there.
Yeah, I didn't think there were some Heat fans that were disappointed with the reaction by the crowd. And they kind of came from a perspective of the crowd was expecting Dion to be a savior, or they were more excited about Dion getting in the game because of Dion's actual play, or that they felt like the Heat needed Dion. I'm sure there are some fans out there that feel like the Heat do need Dion Waiters, but I think mostly it was genuine happiness for a human being that's been struggling. And like sometimes, and it's everything is so negative all the time. It was actually really nice to see that crowd reaction, because I feel like Miami is one of these towns that believes more than most in a redemption story, right? Because as much glitter and glamour they want to put on Miami, it's an immigrant community, right? They believe in second chances. They believe in the American dream, if you will. Like, I think people, like, it was a really sentimental moment for me. I thought, like, there was this guy on the team that has had all these struggles. You could sit there and you could do the thing that they do in the media and point and blame and pick, but the crowd instead decided, let's lift this guy up and thank him for 30 and 11, all the things he's done in the past, all the good memories he's given us. Yeah, dude, you messed up, but listen, we're happy that you're back. You're still part of our team, and we're going to lift you up just like we would anybody else, even more so because of all the struggles. And the fact that you fought back through all this and got into the game when a lot of people, including me and you on this podcast, surmise that he would never play for the Miami Heat again.
Mm-hmm.
We both said that. He's not going to play for Miami Heat again. One of my favorite guys on Twitter, Greg Leigh-Sylvander, said it. And both you and him are connected. Both of you guys thought he'd never play, and he got back in the game. And I really think a lot of that crowd reaction was just genuine happiness for a guy who's been going through a lot of crap. And you know what? He put in the work and got – because you also know this year for this team, if he did not put in the work, he wouldn't be on the floor. So It's not like – it wasn't a desperation move, because if he wasn't putting in the work, Eric Spoelstra would not have let him play on Friday night. And so I think that's where it really came from.
Yeah, well, the last podcast we did without you, Alex and I, we did this thing where we ranked of the four guys. I can't remember the name of the new G League player they've got. But Justice.
Kyle Alexander?
No, the guard. It's going to come to me as soon as we get through this segment. But Justice, Dion, and KZ Okpala, and whoever the guard was that replaced Daryl Macon. We said which of the four of those would get in first, and I think both of us said Dion would be last. But the reason is because it's not like they weren't in desperate straits for a little while, right? Like they didn't have Dragic and Winslow at the same time for a while, and he still didn't play. So now it was Nunn and Dragic, but still two players, and he was put back in there. Look, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I'm certainly someone who believes in second chances. My only thing on it. The only thing I understood to a certain degree on what some of the fans who were negative about Dion said was that, like, Heat fans, maybe weren't as welcoming about someone like Hassan Whiteside, when really Dion did a lot of the things, maybe more.
That is not. But okay, so look at the reaction Rodney Magruder got. It's not even this. Rodney Magruder got a really good ovation. It's not about it. Exactly. Yeah. Now, if Dion left in the midst of all of his problems, went to another team like the Knicks and came back, he would have been booed off of the floor on Friday, whenever he came back into the AAA. If Hassan Whiteside was still on this team and sat out the first half of the season and came back on Friday night, he would have got the same kind of ovation Dion Waiters got.
Probably true, because he's still with the Heat.
Exactly.
Right. He's still with the Heat.
He's one of our guys. That's what the fans were saying. Because Dion, to this day, he's still on the Heat. And one thing Heat fans do, and you know this, they will criticize, but they will also ride for their guys.
Yes.
And
that is
Dion
true.
is still one of their guys, and he got the ovation that I feel like any Heat player deserves after going through what he's been through. And I know I'm going to get ripped for this. Because people just believe you make a mistake and you should pay for it the rest of your life. because people forget that they've made mistakes as well.
Right,
like I'm somebody who's made a ton of mistakes in my life. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, I think the two of us on this podcast understand.
No.
Making mistakes.
Well, we're going out to downtown Fort Lauderdale in about an hour. The reason we're doing the podcast this morning is because we're hitting downtown Fort Lauderdale a little later to discuss our mistakes. So yes, look,
and to make some more.
Right, absolutely. Some more will be made by about 7 p.m. But
so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's honestly, to me, like I sat there as I was in press row as media. I was sitting next to Alex Toledo, and I really felt like a genuine swell of emotion. Like, it was a really, really cool thing because I don't believe in just a guy makes a mistake, several mistakes, and he's just blackballed for the rest of eternity. Like, I just don't believe in that. And I just thought it was really cool. I thought Heat fans did the right thing by one of their guys.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. And I was taking the video as soon as you could see. I didn't even see him walk over, but I could hear the crowd start, and so they noticed it. Many of them noticed it before I did, and so I started taking video, and then you could hear it build, and there was no negativity whatsoever. And I think the other thing to kind of touch on this before we get to Dion's play and whether he can actually help is, what's interesting is that Dion's stuff kind of got out, right? And obviously there's drug stuff and other things related to that, and kind of going, not AWOL on the team, but claiming he was sick and not really being sick and that kind of stuff, and taking the pot shots at Spoelstra. There's been a lot of stuff. There's also been some stuff behind the scenes, between Justice and the team that hasn't been so positive. And I don't think the fans are going to boo Justice when he comes back. They're going to be excited that he comes back, except for 6 idiots on Twitter, There
were groans in the crowd when he made the normal Dion mistakes. That's why I said the ovation was not about basketball. I feel like the ovation was more just about almost like good job, dude. Like you've been screwing up nonstop, and obviously you've done something to get back in the good graces of a guy that looks like he really's not taking any shit this year. Like
no, they're not
taking any crap from anybody.
No,
and for him to get back in his good graces, and the comments from Spoelstra after the game about how hard Dion has worked, it just is like proof positive that this guy has put in the work behind the scenes, and it's a true redemption story. Because if he had not, there's no way Spoelstra would have played him. He would have just taken the L, ran an 8-man rotation, ran him into the ground, and lived with the outcome.
Well, he was doing that for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, when Dragic was out, that's basically what he was doing. I also think, Alf, though, I think JJ helped this. Now, he was bad on Friday. We're going to talk about that. Oof. But I think JJ coming back in and performing well after his situation, I think helped pave the way for Dion a little bit, because I think it's made Heat fans a little bit more open to the possibility that somebody that they thought couldn't contribute could contribute. To a lesser extent, Kelly Olynyk, who I thought played very well on Friday, had kind of worked his way out.
Kelly and Dion were maybe the best two players on the floor.
Okay, well, let's get to that. Let's get to basketball, okay? Because I want to talk basketball with Dion, and then the second half of this episode is going to be Jimmy Butler related stuff. But if Dion, from a basketball perspective, I mean, we saw all of it, on Friday. The whole roller coaster. And you've got to assume some rust there, right? A lot of rust. Okay, so I'm going to give him benefit of doubt on things. And there were times that it would look like he was looking for his teammates, but there were times that Dion's going to Dion. And I think the bigger issue here, okay, now that we've gotten to him getting back in, and of course a lot of this is to try to trade him, but if they're going to be able to trade him, he's got to show something. And he may show something to another team, but I just don't see how there's any way he fits on this one. And watching him the other night, and again, I'm going to put the rust aside, okay, and say I understand that. But the way he plays does not fit what they've been doing all year. That's really, to me, the bigger issue, more so than the playing hooky or the drugs or anything else. It's his playing style does not fit the ball-sharing Miami Heat. They don't really need or want another ISO player. I mean, we've spent the whole year talking about how Kendrick Nunn has made these incredible strides, learning when to pass the ball. And so then Heat fans are like, we need another creator. Well, no, we just spent the whole first half of the season saying Kendrick Nunn can create something, but we want him to help create for others. And now you're bringing in Dion, who did create for others during the 30-11 run for sure, but his natural instinct is to do what he did Friday night. Like Alex's tweet was great. Like, he's going to make up for all the shots here in one night. He didn't quite get there, but I feel he tried, and I just I mean, again, he got them back into the game to a certain degree, and then he kind of shot them out of it. And I don't see how he fits. Now, the bigger issue, like, is there a role for him? Like, if he conforms, if he's working hard, you know.
Let me correct what I said. Something I said earlier. I said Kelly. I meant they were the best two bench players. Because honestly, Tyler Hero probably had one of the best games I've seen him have in a Heat uniform. So I want to correct that first. Now, I absolutely 100% agree with you because when it comes to basketball, now let's get off the sentimental, emotional side. Let's go straight to basketball. Everything that we criticize Kendrick Nunn for, just like you were saying, is what we saw out of Dion on Friday night. Now, we have seen Dion become a facilitator in the 30-11 stretch, just like you were saying. But his natural instinct is to do some of the things that ISO ball that Dragic does well, right? And that Jimmy sometimes has to do. But you don't need 3-4 of those guys in your lineup coming into the game and stopping that ball movement that gets Kendrick Nunn, that gets Duncan Robinson, that gets Tyler Hero involved, shooting threes and making the Heat offense roll. What he did the other night was make up for that 18-0 third quarter run that the Clippers went on and did a bunch of hero ball stuff that just is not conducive to the normal Heat offense. So, yes, whereas I'm happy for Dion that he's gone through what he's gone through and he's back on the floor, basketball fit-wise, unless you see extended absences from Kendrick, Goran, and Jimmy, I don't see where Dion fits with the team the way they've been playing this year.
No, right, and that's why. See, there are teams like I look at Philly, and I know it's a Philly cheese. Like he could help the Sixers. Like they need a creator off their bench.
He could help the Lakers.
I have always mentioned the Lakers. I mean, look, when he can be. He's not Lou Williams, okay, but he could be a Lou Williams type player for one of those contending teams. If he was got with the program, like I don't have any doubt he can play basketball on NBA level. We've seen it.
He really belongs in the Knicks. He really does.
Well, right, averaging 17 and shooting 39%. Right, like that's where he belongs. But I think he can fit on a contender in limited minutes, and I do think the role he could have on the Heat is what we saw Friday night, which is they're discombobulated. They can't get anything going. Okay, here, Dion, go. But to try to fit him into offense in the way we've seen Kendrick Nunn do more over a 1-month span, learning on the fly as a rookie in terms of fitting his game to the Miami Heat than we have seen Dion Waiters do his entire career. So I don't know why anybody expects anything different.
That is such a profound statement, and it's absolutely true, right? Like what we've seen from Kendrick Nunn as far as growth is concerned, Dion hasn't even done that throughout his career.
And he was a top 5 pick.
Yeah, and right? Kendrick Nunn has. I mean, and people call me a Kendrick Nunn hater. And I said I've never hated Kendrick Nunn. I didn't like his game at the beginning of the year, but what he's done is just he's learned the pocket pass. Him and Bam's chemistry has been amazing lately, and these are the things that we've been asking. Not just we Cleveland fans, Oklahoma City fans. People have been asking Dion to do for his entire career that Dion has just never really learned to do. And he has, listen, on a pure talent standpoint, Dion Waiters is probably a better basketball player than Kendrick Nunn is.
I used to believe that. I don't know. We've seen more of the pure skill.
I don't know. Maybe he isn't. But there's no reason that Kendrick Nunn should be this far ahead in his team oriented game than Dion is right now. There's no excuse for it. There really isn't.
And that's why I just don't. I think this was a nice, cute, sentimental story on Friday night, but I don't really think it lasts. We're gonna get to Jimmy after the break and some of the guys that are out. But actually, we will do that right after the break. I want to tell you about something else we're doing this week that you really should check out. This is a pretty cool thing, and it's very important to our community. We're gonna team up with America's team, which is the Wounded Warrior Amputee football team and the NFL alumni, in honoring the students and families of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Of course, you know the tragedy that happened there a couple years ago at this inspiring tribute to heroes. It's going to be held Wednesday evening, January 29th. That's this week at Nova High School in Davie. Everybody knows where that is. That's where the Dolphins still train. For all of our subscribers, all you need to do when you get to the door is say, I'm a guest of 5 Reasons Sports, and you will get in free. So this is our way of supporting the students and families of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. This is going to be televised on ESPN and other places, by the way, and also supporting the amputee veterans and by providing to you, our subscribers, our listeners, a truly fun and inspiring Super Bowl 54 experience. So enjoy the game and a tribute as our guest. So that, again, that's going to be at Nova High School in Davie, Wednesday night, and it's a really good cause, and obviously it's very close to the hearts here. Your co-host on Light Skin Opinions, of course, works at Stoneman Douglas. Chris Maddox, he's done some work.
No, he
with
worked.
Us.
He was there. He worked. He doesn't
not
work
there anymore.
But he was there that day.
Yeah,
he was there. He was there that day, and it hangs with him. And if you ever listened to Light Skin Opinions and heard him talk about it, it's something that will probably never leave him.
Yeah. So, and maybe we'll actually have Chris on here in the next couple of days if he's got some time on one of the pods. He's been on the podcast with us before. He's the one who always gets Spolestra or Spolestra. I'm always getting Chris on that. I don't know where that. Has anybody ever called Spolestra other than Chris Maddox? Anybody?
I don't.
I don't know where that comes from.
He won't learn.
No, he won't.
Learn,
and he's the most educated person in our network, and he's in basketball too, and he refuses to learn Spo's name. I don't get it. All right, let's get to part 2 of this thing, which is the game itself, and I'm really not disappointed in it. I mean, you lose. I know the Clippers didn't have Beverly, and obviously didn't have Paul George. But the Heat didn't have none. They didn't have Dragic. They didn't have Jimmy at the end. I picked the Clippers to win the championship before the year. Kawhi Leonard, I love Giannis. Kawhi Leonard's the best player in basketball, in my view, when he plays. Watching him in person is so different than the television experience because you have to watch Kawhi off the ball, and just he is LeBron-like in the way he's setting everything up. And Nikias broke this down on his Twitter feed, but with some of the video, but why were they coming up high, showing up high on the pick and roll all night against Kawhi? He knows he was just
oh my God.
over and over and over and over picking them apart. I just you can't. I don't know how you play him, but you don't play him that way.
During the game, I was sitting there with Alex, and I put it. It was all over my Twitter feed. I was like, they keep trapping Kawhi, and he's just picking them apart. It was surgical. It was absolutely surgical. It was all that was the entire end of the third quarter run. It was trapping Kawhi, and he's just using those giant hands to just one hand the ball and fling it all over the court to open 3-point shooters in the corner.
Right.
And it was maddening. And listen, I'm not the guy who does the whole super critiquing coaches and whatnot and all that stuff and schemes because, listen, they know a lot more than I do. But just like you, I was wondering, why are the Heat doing this, and why do they think it works? Because
no, I don't know. It was not. It was not. It's funny too because Spolstra will go back. Spolestra will go back and take a look. It's a lot of things he does, and I wonder what he thinks of that one. Looking back at it, I don't know what the alternative was. I thought the Heat also got disjointed offensively. There were some circumstances. Jimmy was getting frustrated because nobody was coming out to screen for him properly. So there were 2 straight sequences where Kelly just didn't come out or didn't come out high enough, and he got some of it was these groups hadn't played together a lot, but it got away from them. And then we saw, what I've said all year is the Heat can play with anybody, and they will always play to the end. We saw that again on Friday night. I think that's positive. My overall takeaway from that game is not a negative thing. You jumped down on the Clippers early. I think we saw the best of what the Heat can look like. And the shooting was terrific. The spacing was great. Hero was fantastic in that first quarter as a starter. He's a topic for another day. I want to devote another whole episode to him, but we're not going to do it today. But I was encouraged by that overall performance. I don't, again, you had Dion playing, who hadn't played with him all year. The Clippers have played without Paul George a lot. Okay. The Heat.
I noted that before the game. That
they're used to it. I'm not saying he's not an elite player. They're not used to playing without Nunn and Dragic.
Playing without Nunn and Dragic. It was a lot to overcome.
And I know we don't even mention his, thou who shall not be named. But I mean, if you're looking at their rotation players for the playoffs, provided that the back situation clears up, I mean, Nunn, Dragic, and Winslow are going to be 3 of their 4 primary ball handlers, correct? So, they didn't have any of them.
So one of the things I saw, and, we can talk about the whole Justice thing as much as we want to, but one of the reasons they missed Justice is because they had to play so much zone. Somebody posted the game last year where it was like where Justice and Kawhi went at it at the end of the fourth quarter in a tight game when it was Toronto versus Miami, and you saw Justice go toe-to-toe with Kawhi. And it was man on man. There was no zone. They were manning up, and it was amazing. They don't have the personnel for that right now.
No.
Derrick Jones Jr. was a minus 31.
Yeah.
Like a minus 31. And honestly, I think Derrick Jones Jr. is one of their best on the ball defensive players, but it just was not happening the other night. And one of the things I do, if we want to talk about a critique, but it's not just about that game. Mm-hmm. It's kind of how I've been feeling a lot lately. Like, I feel like the zone is hurting them. To the point where teams understand the zone now.
Yes.
There's so much tape on the zone.
He did it too early in the season. I said this when they did it in the Sixer game. Like,
guys like Montrezl Harrell are going to kill you.
Well, and that's the thing, though, Alpha. And it was brilliant when he did it in the Philly game. But my concern right after it was my concern originally was Philly, because you expect to see Philly down the line. And, and after they did it to Philly, then other teams started doing it to Philly. Brett Brown talked about that when he was in town the next time. And so they now have a whole half season to adjust to it. So if you flip it on them, what surprised me about that was you're talking about a regular season game, right? That was like in the first 25 games of the season. And Spoelstra has typically held these things very close to the vest. And because I remember in the Big Three era, I can't remember the game, okay, but there was a game he unleashed his zone in the playoffs, okay. And now it's you're right, everything has been seen. So I understand wanting your guys to get better at it, and I also understand. And he kind of made a joke about this the other day. They don't have good individual defenders right now. Even he said, I threw JJ out there just so it looked like we have more guys. They don't. They've got basically 4 guys that can be positive individual defenders. One of them in Jimmy is exhausted. Another in DJJ is doing this really for the first time. JJ just sort of worked his way back into the rotation, and Justice is out. So and then Bam.
Yeah.
Well, Bam's Bam. But but in terms of the perimeter guys and the forwards and the guards, that's basically what they have. Everybody else is a negative. And Hero, he's praised Hero a lot for his defense, and I do think he's gotten better. I think Kendrick's gotten better at some things, and other things he's being taken advantage of. But Goran has his limitations. We know that. Kelly has his limitations. We know that. Myers communicates, but has his limitations. Duncan has his limitations. So you're talking about. We've talked about that all year. But so I understand why he's had to do it in some situations. But they have become so dependent on it, and this is the whole thing. I don't want to debate Justice again today, but this is where they miss Justice. If basketball fans can't understand that, I don't know what to tell you, because you're upset that he misses a few layups. This is where they miss Justice. It's where a guy's going off like Lou Williams, and you just tell Justice, I don't want him to get the ball anymore, and Justice goes out there and does. And Justice does most of his work before the ball even gets to his man. Right,
and
the hand fighting and the physicality.
If you want a clinic on how to defend a man off the ball, just watch Justice Winslow play. Now
he's better than Jimmy at it. He's better than he is their best. Jimmy is great. And I have a quote on this in my article about Jimmy that came out this week from DJJ. Jimmy's real strength is playing off the ball, is playing center field, playing safety. That's what Jimmy's great at. Justice is, if you're right, if you just say Lou Williams, enough, okay?
Exactly.
You're not putting Jimmy on him. So you're going to Justice first. Jimmy was
like when Fred VanVleet was going off on them in the first Toronto game.
Right.
They said, okay, I just don't want. Spoelstra said, I don't want Fred VanVleet to even be comfortable for the rest of the game. Justice went out there and completely shut him down. But so let's get off of the Justice thing. One of the things that I see with the zone that keeps happening, and Crotty points it out a lot on the broadcast, is that when you're in the zone, what do you give up? You give up so many offensive rebounds.
Yes.
And it's almost a disservice to Bam. Because Bam is out there on the perimeter or he's out of position. When you're not playing man-on-man, there's no guy necessarily to box out. No. You have guys running free at the rim a lot, and we've seen way too many second chance points.
Yep.
Was it the Kings game where they literally had like 22 more field goal
That's
attempts?
the only reason that game was tight.
Because they had so many more
box.
field goal attempts.
No,
because they didn't box anybody out.
They couldn't box out. And what's also happening is, again, Bam is being asked. We've talked about the burden on Jimmy, but the burden on Bam at this point, I mean, he's playing point guard. On a lot of possessions and asked to do all these other things. And then, so it's like when I have a frustration with Bam, like there were 3 times, and it was on the end of the court, because I was in my usual seat. So it was on the end of the court that I was at, and Bam had these clean looks and did not turn around and look at the basket. I just feel like there's so much information floating around in his head right now that he can't just play free, that they're asking him to do so much. I mean, Chris Bosh was asked to do a ton as a big during the Big Three era because they did not have another big, right? I mean, and I feel like that's where we're at right now. Not that Myers is not contributing, not that Kelly didn't give him something Friday night, but the things that Bam does are so unique, and you're asking him to be a staunch rebounder too. It's tough, man. It's tough, and so I'm with you. The zone, I don't know what they do though until they get some defenders, until they get Justice back, and I've told you repeatedly, I don't know that we're going to get good news on that in about a week. I saw him on the bench. He was into it. I don't know. It doesn't.
Even their best minutes on Friday night came man to man, shorthanded without Jimmy Butler.
I know.
To me,
it's such a non-heat thing, Alf. It's such a non-heat.
Yeah, I don't even get it. It doesn't even. I don't. It doesn't. And I don't want to be hypercritical. You know what I'm saying? Because they are 31-14,
right.
And they've been excellent this season. They have the second best record in the Eastern Conference. But I will say that I feel like there's times that they need to trust their guys a little bit more and
force them. Here's what I would say on this: lose a game based on it. Play man and lose a game.
Yes.
And then because to me this is what Pat would have done. Okay, and I don't like to do the Spo Pat comparison a lot because there's a lot of things Spo does that I think are a lot better than what Pat did. Sorry, Pat. They're just things in observing the two of them. I think
as a game day coach,
I think he's a better game day coach. I know a lot of fans will disagree with me on that, but I think he's a better game day coach. But I do think that in a situation like this, Pat would look at his guys, and we're going to go to break after this, but I think Pat would look at his guys and say, I've been told not to curse on the podcast anymore because there are too many kids listening. Okay, so and we've been better lately. Okay, I think Pat would look at his guys and say, bleep and guard, or I'll find somebody else who'll guard. Like that. I feel like that's where they're at with it. Like force, and I feel like that's what Jimmy would want too. Like, okay, Tyler guard, Kendrick guard, okay, Duncan guard. Keep the Goran, okay. Keep these guys for good, and if not, you're out. Like that's.
There's
feel
no
like
safety.
that's what.
Stop with the safety valve for these guys,
right?
Force them to guard. I feel like sometimes, like for Kendrick Nunn, I feel like Kendrick Nunn has the athletic ability to be a good on-ball defender, but in the zone, a lot of times is a safety valve. So what happens? Yeah. He lets guys not lets guys. He tries, but he understands at some point you release. The guy gets into the middle of the zone. Now and what I've seen an adjustment from other teams is now there's a back cut behind Myers or behind Bam. Now Myers can't step up to a Montrezl Harrell because he's worried about the guy behind him, and now you just have a guy shooting a free floater from the dotted line.
There's too much stuff going on in the middle of the paint right now. Like not at the rim. We've talked about at the rim, but there's too much stuff going on at the free throw. Inside the free throw line between there, and the rim. Too much, and that is the teams are picking this apart. Again, I'm not going to be hypercritical here because, like you said, I think Eric Spoelstra is the coach of the year. And he's had to do a lot of things to adjust to the circumstances as they are. But I almost think it'd be worth losing a game or two. Just play man the whole time and show these guys.
When the ball comes when the ball comes off in those shots underneath the free throw line, now you have like four offensive players, and then you have like Bam and Duncan Robinson, and they're just outnumbered underneath the rim. And that's where all these offensive rebounds are coming from.
Right, and remember,
offensive players know to run right at the rim on a shot against the zone because you have a really good chance of getting an offensive rebound.
It's going to be a problem in the playoffs. They've got to get guys to guard now, and I don't without Justice, I don't know how you do it. We're going to get to one more thing here after, and then we're going to shelve some stuff for other podcasts because we went a little bit long today. But I want to tell you about another great sponsor, the 5 Reasons Sports Network, the BetDSI.com website. You should definitely go there, and you should put in the code 5101. That's FIVE 101. It is Super Bowl week. Like I've said, we're going to be covering everything related to the Super Bowl, but mostly related to the Dolphins. But of course, you can bet the Super Bowl props and everything else on there. I mean, I just checked it out. I'm going to be betting a bunch of stuff before Sunday to make the game a little bit more interesting. Because I will tell you, Alf, this will be my 10th Super Bowl. A lot of Super Bowl games, not so interesting. I've been to some that have been great. I've been to some that are not so great. But the thing about the Super Bowl is you can bet just about anything. So go to betdsi.com. Again, that's betdsi.com. And
all the props.
The props are great. Use the promo code. I mean, the national anthem, all that stuff, right? Use the promo code. Steve Ross. What is he going to do on the sideline? Actually, I don't know. I don't know about that. But it would have been worse if Ryan Tannehill was here. 5101. Again, the promo code is 5101. All right. Let's get to the last piece of this. We're gonna discuss my Jimmy Butler piece in another episode. I think I want to kind of devote a full one to that because the perception of Jimmy is a lot different than what he's been here in Miami. But I do recommend that you check out the piece. I talked to 8 of his teammates about him. It got a little thanks to Dono. It got a little bit of love on the jump. The quote from Udonis Haslem, which was my favorite quote in the piece. But I think it's mostly because Udonis was annoyed at me because I was trying to get in the locker room. He's like, just walk out to this was at MSG. And he's like, just walk out to the court. So I was like, all right. So we did it on the way to the court. And he had a great quote where he says, I don't know why everybody keeps asking me about why Jimmy's different here than other places. You put a dog in a cage with a bunch of cats, he's going to growl. You put him in a kennel with a bunch of other dogs, he's going to feel right at home. So that quote got some attention.
Wait, is that cats with a K?
That's what people asked. Is it cat with a K?
With a K or
or cat with
a
C?
Or cat with a C?
It's funny. I didn't even. You know what's funny? When he gave me that quote and I wrote it up, I didn't even think of that. I mean, I was thinking Minnesota, Philadelphia, Chicago in my head, but I didn't think of cats specifically. And I know. I don't
think UD meant it.
No, he did not.
I don't think UD meant it like that. That's honestly just South Florida.
Yeah, that was just
Miami, just a way of speaking. He didn't mean it that way.
Absolutely. But the other thing I think you should check out in the piece, and we'll devote more time to this, but is how the relationship built between Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler. Quick story on this, and then we'll get to where they are and where Jimmy's ankle is right now. But basically, Tyler reached out to Jimmy after he got drafted, and after obviously Jimmy signed, which was Tyler got drafted first, and then Jimmy was acquired in the trade. And Tyler reached out to him and said, "Hey, I'm the new rookie." He got his number and he reached out to him by text. And Jimmy's response was, "Come hang out with me and work out with me in Chicago for a week at my house." And that's how it started. And then he liked him enough.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, and then he liked him enough from the very beginning that Jimmy had to fly back to close on his house in Miami and took Tyler with him. And Tyler went to the house closing. And then they went and watched Neymar at the stadium that night. If obviously Jimmy's a soccer nut, and Neymar's his favorite. He thinks he's the best player in the world. Some people would disagree with that, but he's certainly top 5. Went to watch Neymar at the stadium here, and they flew back to Chicago and kept working out. And if you remember that IG photo, the 2 of them working out, it came during that week. So that's how the relationship built. So I think if you read the story, I talked to Dragic, I talked to DJJ, I didn't get JJ because at the time he wasn't in the rotation, but I talked to Kendrick Nunn, I thought was interesting. And who else? Myers was great. That stuff was all on our podcast, but I ran it in the story. So definitely check all of that out. But let's just real quick here. The one thing we haven't talked about much is that Jimmy got hurt a few times Friday night. He got poked in the eye, went down like he was shot, and then ended up getting up. Then, of course, he rolled his ankle twice. Now they've got a big back-to-back coming up against one team they don't play well against and another team that is competing with them for the 2 spot in the Eastern Conference right now. Can they afford to get by without Jimmy for these 2 games if that's necessary?
Not if Dragic and Nunn are still out.
Right.
But if there's anything going on with Jimmy, I think they just need to let him sit. And I think one of the things is Jimmy is going to try to play no matter what. But if they're on the fence, even if Dragic and Nunn are out, I would say just sit them. At this point, you've established enough of a record. You're right there in the mix between 2 and 4, and even they could actually drop down to 5, or I think they could drop down to 5 with a couple of losses and other outcomes if other teams win. But you've established enough of a track record. You've established enough of a presence at home that as long as you stay in this mix and have a nice stretch after the All-Star break, which is what normally happens with Eric Spoelstra coach teams, they're better after the All-Star break than they are before it. Mm-hmm. I say if Jimmy is feeling any kind of discomfort, you let him sit, because even if he wasn't feeling discomfort, the guy needs to rest.
Yeah.
Like, he's exhausted. So if there's any discomfort there, just let him rest, sit him out. You take your chances with the guys that you have, and just keep rolling, because it just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense when you look at what the long-term outcome of this roster can be to push Jimmy for 2 home games when in the greater scheme of things, you're worried about the playoffs.
Yeah, and when I looked at this 6-game stretch which started the Clipper game, I was like, if they can get 2 wins out of this, I know Heat fans won't be happy with that, but if they can get two or three, 2, especially with the Nunn and Dragic injuries, if they could get 2 wins out of this, it might not be the worst thing in the world. Again, they've overachieved to this point. There's also this other thing that, like, if they end up with a 2 seed, the whole coaching staff is going to the All-Star game, and I think they kind of want the break too. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying they're going to tank it, but if they lose Tuesday night, they pretty much don't have to go. They're not going to tank it. I'm not saying that they're going to lose the game on purpose. I'm just making light of the situation. But I think there is some truth to it. Like, everybody kind of needs a mental break at this point, and a lot of these players are not going to get it because Jimmy and Bam are going to be announced to the All-Star team. And DJJ is already in the slam dunk. I asked Bam about the skills competition. He wants to do that if he's asked. Duncan hasn't been invited to 3-point yet, but there's still like 5 slots open. They haven't filled those slots.
Yeah, he's going to go. I mean, his catch and shoot numbers are so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think he's going to go too. And so and then who I'm then Tyler
and Nunn.
I'm both going. So they're going to have 6 guys there most likely. I mean, with Duncan being the 6th. Plus, I know Myers is going up there for some meetings. I mean, the whole team is going to be in Chicago. So I don't know if the coaching staff necessarily needs to be there too. But getting back to Jimmy, I'm with you. They have to rest him if he doesn't feel right. I don't know the severity of the Dragic and Nunn injuries. Achilles injuries are tricky. If that one worries me more than the other one, and it kind of came out of nowhere, so that's worrisome. So I don't know.
Sore Achilles doesn't sound good.
It doesn't sound good. I mean, you have to rest that. You can't. That's one of those like injuries you can't take a chance with. So I don't have a great feeling about this week. Obviously, the Tuesday night game is going to be very well attended. Boston game during Super Bowl week. Everybody has kind of gotten into town at that point. The Heat will want to put on a show. Jimmy will want to put on a show. But I'm with you. If he's not right, let him rest. And even Eric said it after the game. With ankle injuries, you just don't know. Is it a high ankle sprain? What degree ankle sprain is it? How quickly? It seems like they got it treated pretty quickly. But, again, it happened twice during the game. So, that's a bit of a concern. So, anyway, we'll talk about that and more podcasts coming up this week. Like I said, check out 5reasonsports.com and our event in Davie at Nova on Wednesday night. Just say you're with 5 Reasons and you will get in for free. Also, if you have any legal issues you need to take care of, hopefully Alf and I will not after about 7 o'clock tonight. Seltzer Mayberg Law Firm, onecalllegal.com. That's onecalllegal. I got to go pick up a Super Bowl credential. This isn't going to be a late afternoon. Onecalllegal.com, ONE, calllegal.com. 24 hours a day, someone there to handle your case, whether it's immigration, personal injury, or just about anything else, or traffic tickets. So they took care of mine a few weeks ago, and I was greatly appreciative of that. So talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.